Today's idea comes from the planet Nerude. How can we create the ultimate spaceman and melt our way through the game like good old Tal Rotha would want us to? Well, meet the undead space worker. Using an amulet called the Effluvium Enhancer will make short work of bosses. Acid, for those who don't know, makes enemies take more damage, while also dealing damage over time. So this paired up with Nebula grants some nasty damage. So throw on your gas mask and let's get going. Your prime class will be Archon. This offers a lot to us, but the two things we care about are much better mod regen and 50% mod damage. Both our mods will be dealing acid, which Archon will massively buff. I also found Archon pretty useful here because you can take a Relic to get most of your mod power back. Archon's going to be our primary source of damage, and trust me, Nebula is crazy when used on this class. I ran with Reality Rune as the skill, as light armor is a bit more challenging to play with. Dying from random projectiles is less common when you could slow down everything and keep enemies contained behind a doorway. This also provides 25% damage reduction, which can help you take boss hits at times. For your subclass, you want Gunslinger. Now, it's easy to think Medic or Alchemist as they buff all damage and would indeed increase the overtime acid damage. However, Gunslinger offered better gameplay overall when I messed with it. Your gun, which again is going to be infused with acid, gains more damage, fire rate, and crit chance. Another huge bonus is the increase in ammo, which the pulse rifle desperately needs if you get it to fire faster. Gunslinger will allow you to instantly kill everything if you have your buffs activated at the same time. It allows you to be more active in the damage dealing rather than waiting for the acid or nebula to put in the work. For the skill, you want Bullet Storm. This increases fire rate and allows the pulse rifle to become full auto when activated. The pulse rifle is so much better as a full auto gun. I mean, it becomes S tier when you have Bullet Storm active. As for armor, I have the full Space Worker suit. This provides almost no defense and makes taking damage less of an option. But we do get the best dodge in the game, and it's fun to play near infinite dodging once in a while. This armor really fits our build theme, but if you just can't deal with the game out of heavy armor, you can swap one of our rings for the bright steel ring. Very easy to do and will not break the build. The relic you want is Void Heart. This is from Nerude and actually works well with a lighter armor set. Taking it reduces all damage taken by 50% for 4 seconds. After those 4 seconds, you fully heal. Took me a minute or two to get used to that delayed heal, but it can also be used to gain our mods back, remember. So you can use your relic more freely, and if you happen to get hit after doing so, you won't die and then will instantly fully heal. Happened to me more often than not, so pretty useful. For relic fragments, you want mod damage, elemental damage, and mod duration. These all increase the damage of both our mods and allow them to be usable for a bit longer. For your main weapon, you want the pulse rifle. This is one of the most reliable weapons in the game with a really good fire rate and faster reload speed. Also having excellent range to make up for our sidearm. Use the corrosive rounds mod on it. This is an extremely strong mod that allows our bullets to be infused with acid, granting us the power of both of our classes at the same time, which is where we get all our synergy. Firing this massively increases crit, and with the overtime damage, like 2 shots kills everything most of the time. On bosses, if you're able to hit a weak spot, the health bar starts depleting very quickly, especially if you have acid rounds and bullet storm active at the same time. Then throw on the Bandit Mutator. While Momentum would be better for damage, I found that Bandit drastically reduced how many times I had to reload, thus allowing me to get more out of both my mods and skill. Overall, this setup makes the Pulse Rifle have high fire rate and insane damage. For your melee, you want the Corel Axe. Now, theme-wise, the Gas Giant Hammer is much better, but on a lighter armor set, it looked a little silly. And I enjoy the smaller melee options as they're more out of the way of the screen. This should be pretty familiar to anyone who's seen a couple of my build videos. The Corel Axe can be thrown applying lightning damage, which we don't really need, but it is nice for bosses that take a while to beat. Use the Reinvigorate Mutator so it doesn't kill your stamina. To no one's surprise, we'll be using Nebula as our sidearm. A powerful acid-based gun that deals only acid damage at a short range. Here, we will have this buffed, so in gun form, it's going to be very effective. Now, what's interesting is you can have 2 different stacks of acid damage because of this. Corrosive damage will last for 10 seconds after applied, but because both of our mods deal acid, you just need 1 bullet from each to apply 2 separate stacks of corrosion simultaneously, for really amazing overtime damage. Then, Nebula also has the mod called Nanoswarm. I'm sure most are familiar with it as it's amazing for many builds. But here, we're going to get this to wipe out everything. Nano Swarm will deal massive acid damage from our items and last forever since we're using Archon to have it back all the time. Let these little bugs fly and go back to shooting. I promise these will greatly up your damage. Then run Harmonizer as the mutator to get even more damage from Nano Swarm and regen our corrosive bullets faster. All in all, we have really strong acid damage with great short range and long range guns, providing you with several tools to deal with enemies. And if everything just isn't going your way, activate the Nano Swarm and stand behind a wall. They always get the job done. Now for the trinkets, which provide huge power boosts to acid. The Effluvium Enhancer increases acid damage by 20% and corrosive damage by 50%. This means our damage is buffed by 20% all the time, while the overtime damage will be 50% better, which is really helpful as the acid works as a co-op partner, putting in enough damage to be from another player. Acid Stone will increase acid damage by 10%, giving you more acid resistance as well. The small damage boost is more than you think as we're going to be doing so much acid to any given target. The Alumni Ring increases all elemental damage dealt by 10%. More output for our acid and increases the Krell Axe if you happen to throw it. The Black Cat Band will let you use one free death hit and keep on moving. I love it here as light armor is not nearly as forgiving and this will stop you from ripping your hair out, trust me. Of course, this is the item you could also replace with the Bright Steel Ring if you wanted to go as tank as possible. Lastly, we have the Shard Banded Ring. This provides a 12% increase to both of our mods. Since both our mods deal corrosion damage, they gain about 52% more damage from the trinkets alone. And I'm telling you, both are always going to be active and absolutely melting bosses. Crates do feel pretty important here as you want to avoid hits more often. Ammo reserves so you can shoot both guns with much less ammo boxes. Flash Caster to activate the mods faster and we'll be using them constantly. Untouchable to dodge more easily and avoid unnecessary get-goodery moments. Vigor for health, endurance for stamina, even though it isn't always the most important trait, I never run without it. Spirit for more mod regen, and expertise for better skill cooldown. Then I grabbed fitness to evade further as lighter builds should always have this. Getting out of an enemy's attack range rather than just evading the attack is extremely helpful. Lastly, I took footwork to increase movement speed while aiming. This is the biggest difference from the first game to this one, as in the first, you could always have this and avoid shots by moving rather than dodging. Well, unfortunately with limited trait points, it's a much less used trait. For this build, it's going to help us stay alive with lighter armor and stay focused on damage. For the consumable, you want Dark Fluid. This increases evade distance by 15% and the stamina cost of doing so by 20%, which allows you to be more spammy with the evades, and you can get out of a boss's range in just 2 dodges, so much safer gameplay overall. As for how to use the build, you kinda just want to use mods and fire away. Make sure you always have the Nano Swarm active from Nebula while you're keeping both applications of corrosion applied from each weapon. Pair up Bullet Storm with the acid rounds for your best damage results and you're good to go. The Bubble, Relic, and Cat Band are all there to keep you alive through mistakes and push through stickier moments. Your acid damage will be ridiculously high, and even if bosses have element to resist, you could still melt them. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, a like would be awesome. This one is pretty easy to set up and will still output loads of damage that makes bosses feel very doable. I beat another entire run of Apocalypse to show off this build, and nothing gave me trouble except Venom. But come on, he's an absolute beast. But for everything else, I was able to take a few hits and keep on moving. We have high damage that stops fights from taking more than 3 or 4 minutes at a time. Get out there and melt your way through Remnant 2 as a forgotten space worker with a vendetta. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.